I don't know. Enough about that. Can
yes.
we? I heard you were going to apologize for Iron Fist.
Yes, let's talk about Iron Fist and get to watch this bitches as soon as possible because
works for me.
I've been thinking about it a lot this week. We've watched.
Shipwreck and I know very much that you've been thinking a lot about Iron Fist. It's occupied a lot of my reading time, thanks to you.
In your
and just to start with, I've only seen 3 episodes of it.
Okay,
I've seen 7.
Oh, me too.
Okay.
My episodes, I knew that you guys would be watching it, so I decided when I was up at 3 a.m. doing feedings that would be my go-to.
Oh, this is. I remember what it feels like at those times. You can't really enjoy anything at that time.
It's not that bad.
Well, you were talking about different people, though. You're someone who sleeps. Shipwreck hasn't slept probably since 1987.
I don't sleep much.
All right.
So
it's 2 different animals.
Yeah. So I started off, I did not watch beyond the first episode of any of the other Marvel ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I watched the first episode of Luke Cage and the first episode of Jessica Jones. I thought they were well done, but just not my thing.
Not done well enough for you.
No, well, that's in general. I'm not a TV guy.
You just didn't want to watch it. It's fine.
Yeah, I just didn't want to watch. It just wasn't, the tone wasn't what I wanted.
Okay.
And it gets confusing to me that these are still part of the same universe as what the movies are. Just because the tone is just so different.
Yeah.
These are a little grittier, I guess.
Well, they're grittier. They're more boring because they're spread out over over 13 hours instead of 2.5.
Yeah. I mean, and I said this to someone I had a conversation on Twitter about this today. My personal criticism for all of the Netflix Marvel shows, and so far it's been true for every single one, is that they try to tell one story over 13 episodes when they don't need 13 episodes to ever tell any of these stories. And I personally think it would be great. I think it would be better if I was, the person in charge, it should be 2 6-episode chunks. And in the middle, they should do like a one-shot. If you're a comic book nerd, just one, like a standalone episode.
That makes sense
in the middle.
Since they are comic books. That's kind of standard arc type thing. Or like even
a standard year of comic books.
Like maybe something happens in an episode.
Yeah, well,
maybe you don't have to watch 3 episodes for something to happen.
That's the problem with doing the 13 episodes. If it was 6 episodes, the momentum would be a little bit stronger, and then again, you'd have that something in the middle to kind of like cleanse your palate, and then you go into something else.
That said, I watched 1 episode of Iron Fist, and I was not opposed to watching more of it because it felt more like similar in tone to what TV dramas are. Like
that goes away.
It didn't feel like a Netflix type thing.
That's going to go away.
I don't think it necessarily goes away that much, and I don't think that Chipwreck's wrong. I think it in many ways it probably may have more in common with The Good Wife than it does with.
Dude, it's so hyper violent. I can't even look at the screen.
The violence, but it's not really all. It does. I find it to be few and far between.
Dude, it's
I
disgusting. I can't even look at it.
No, the graphic, when the violence is there, it's graphic for graphic's sake, but I don't think I think that there's a lot more office drama that's unnecessary than there is graphic violence.
But, okay, that's fine. I'd say that all of these Netflix Marvel shows are very similar. You can argue about like which have better stories and which have better action sequences, and that's all up for debate. But they all have weaknesses, and I think Wombat hit the nail on the head. Is that they're telling too much story, and you don't need to hear all that stuff. And all of these things have too much scenes in offices. Daredevil had the same thing. I remember going.
This one seems a little more. The word I want to use is like antiseptic. It's a little too clean. It's a little too. I feel like every other scene is in that boardroom where it's just people sitting around a big wooden desk next to some windows.
Well, you have that. You have like a clean apartment, and you have a lot of hospital scenes so far from what I've seen. So it's a lot of clean environments.
Yeah, and it's sort of weird. And don't get me wrong.
Isn't
I don't
New York
hate
City
this.
that clean? Like everywhere?
Inside.
Actually, it depends. I think think that's what they were trying to do with this series. In my opinion, bringing it back from last week, what I think they were trying to do to separate this show from the other ones is, each one of these Marvel series is supposed to show you a different slice of what's in Manhattan and how different people live in Manhattan and how diverse it really is. From Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen, which is kind of dirty and grimy,
so
even though that Hell's
there
Kitchen
don't have iPhones.
Yeah, even I mean, in Hell's Kitchen, like that doesn't even really exist anymore. But there are still places in Manhattan that are like that, so it's not way off base. To Luke Cage's Harlem, which is its own microcosm in itself, to this sort of upper class, high rise world, which is it's this ivory tower clean world, which does in fact exist in Manhattan. And I think that that's what they were trying to highlight, but I don't know if they necessarily did it good enough or well enough.
I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
I think there's a lot of transitions that I'm just like, it jumps around a lot and doesn't really it doesn't really make sense why these scenes are happening other than they have to happen.
Well, I think that, I think they overcomplicated their own plot in order to stretch it out over 13 episodes. I don't want to give anything away, so I don't want to say too much, but I think that there's a really simple story in there that's a better story
than
any
simple
of the...
if Danny's going to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Than the more complicated office politic plot line that they sort of lead with. I think most of that is unnecessary. I think it's about 90% unnecessary.
Right. I feel like it sort of got, and Mass Effect also sort of got off to like an unfair start with the critics. I feel like
this was a pretty easy target.
Iron Fist is a super easy target right now because you have a white guy doing martial arts. And, a lot of the critics use that in their reviews of the show. Which I think is like, it's kind of silly. You can't, I mean, I don't want to, call out Polygon here, but this just happens to be the one where I read it first, and I'm sure it's in other reviews as well. But they say, sure, this is a show where a white male character explains how to punch to an Asian American female head of her own dojo in her own dojo. And then she goes on to say, a white male character explains his martial art, which was made up by white men in the 70s. As a non-specific, I don't even know what they talk about anymore. But it's like, isn't that racist?
Yeah, that went way out there after that. Like,
yeah,
this is a comic book movie. It's not.
Also, I mean, I think and when you watch, and it's funny because I read that review. I read more than one review that mentioned that exact scene before I watched the show.
Yeah.
And when that scene came on, I was expecting it to be something more glaring and more insulting.
Right.
And when it wasn't, it felt weirdly like a weird thing to call out. And I'm not saying that there isn't room for the conversation. And I don't necessarily even think it's a bad conversation. But I also think it's, the conversation loses momentum and it loses impact when you're trying to find reasons to justifying it, as opposed to just, saying, as opposed to just offering up your opinion on why you think it should be the way it is.
Well, and there's a lot more to that character than just martial arts. And so if you're just going to change him so that the martial arts fit the ethnic background that you associate martial arts with, then you mess up the rest of the background of that story. It's just
sort of like reverse racist to say that an Asian person is inherently better at martial arts than a white person. As far as I know, there's no genetics in an Asian person that would make that to be true. And I'm sure
in your house, you better hope not, because you're going to get your ass kicked.
No, I mean, Shima agrees with me that it was real. These critiques were very ridiculous. In fact, when I tweeted about it the other day, my buddy, who is a white Jew who lives in Tokyo, replied to me and thought it was ridiculous and pointed out that he teaches Japanese martial arts to Japanese people as a white Jew living in Tokyo. He's like a sword master.
Well, we're also supposed to believe that Danny Rand on this show has been studying martial arts for 9 hours a day for 12 years nonstop.
15 years.
Yeah.
In a mythical place by mythical
in
people.
Kunlun. Yeah. So
He still kind of looks like he's going to fall over when he's doing it.
I was going to say, I don't disagree with the fact that that Iron Fist, that Finn Jones who plays him, who I'm sure is a very nice person.
He's a fine actor. He was
miscast.
Well,
he was not the right person for this part.
He might have been the right person. He might have just not been given the amount of training that he needed to do this.
They said that they had 15 minutes to rehearse the scenes, the fight scenes before they shot them.
He didn't. I don't think he bulked up enough either. He looks a little skinny.
Yeah,
he looks short at times.
Yeah,
and I say
ripped.
this as a short guy. I don't like his haircut.
Right.
I don't like his stupid face. Can I say that? Can I say that I don't like his stupid face?
He looks like fucking Iron Fist.
No, he doesn't.
He looks like the cartoon.
No, he doesn't. I read today because actually a couple of days ago I read the first appearance of Iron Fist, which I had actually never read before, from 1972, because that's on Marvel Unlimited. They have on Marvel Unlimited, one of the pages is get to know Danny Rand, and they just have this little greatest hits of comics of his. So I read his first appearance, which I had never read before, and he looks in that one, he looks just like a pretty generic-y looking, very tall and muscular. And then I read the Fraction Brubaker Immortal Iron Fist 1, which is really the Iron Fist that I've actually read the most of. I read that whole series that they did because it was amazing. Shipwreck, have you ever read that?
I know nothing about Iron Fist, really.
Okay, there was a series that Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction wrote together.
Okay.
With really amazing art, I think by I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong, but Dave Aja, whatever, doesn't matter. It's really good. It's amazing, and they sort of like I don't want to say rip off because that's not really what it is. It has a weird, almost Mortal Kombat influence to it, but in the hands of some really talented writers, and Iron Fist is there. You picture, was it Liu Kang? He's like the hero guy in,
sure.
Or Johnny Cage. It doesn't matter. One or the other. And replace one of them with Iron Fist. And basically it's them, having to protect Kunlun. And the way to do that is to basically win this tournament. And there's sort of like that storyline. And it's very good. It's very interesting. And the first issue of Immortal Iron Fist, which I hadn't read in forever, does have him actually in New York City in the beginning. But he looks a lot different there than he does in the 1972 comic. In that one, he is smaller. But he still looks, I don't know, there's just a look to him that's different. He seems like someone that you wouldn't want to mess with. He also fights Hydra in that issue, like all of Hydra. But it's a similar situation, though, where, in Immortal Iron Fist #1, Hydra tries to buy a building from Rand Industries under an alias, and he figures out that it's Hydra, and then he goes and beats them up. That's what that's about. Great. So, it's nothing that if you read it, you'd be familiar with what's going on, but something about that comic book, that one issue, is better than anything I've seen on that show.
All right.
I don't know. And that's from 11 years ago.
I just think that a lot of critics now, there's no in between, right? Either something is laughably bad or awesome.
This is definitely in between.
Yeah,
it is.
This
I agree
is
with you.
Firmly in between, really bad and good.
Yeah,
yes, but I agree with you there, and I'll finish watching it. I'm not hating it, and people, I'm so critical. I don't hate it. I'm just pointing out what I find not great.
If only they could make that opening, like the little animation with the title screen, if they could make that about 10 minutes longer than it already is.
Welcome to Netflix originals. They're all like that.
Why? Don't they have data that says that we all just fast forward through that?
I don't know.
If you watch it on a computer, you can actually, there's a button that says skip intro.
Anyway, I'm just saying it's not as bad as most people think it is.
Is it typical for all these things to have a different director for every episode too?
Yeah. The showrunner is the same for every episode, generally speaking, but it's a different director.
Why is that? That's confusing to me because
most shows have
clearly
different directors.
see, but that might be why I don't like TV that much because I clearly see like different direction.
Different directors. It's about it. It's actually a lot different on TV. Directing for TV isn't the same as directing for a movie. It is very much this sort of mercenary atmosphere where a director comes in. It's rare for a director to do an entire series. What the real voice of a show is the showrunner, which is a different thing altogether. And you can usually tell when showrunners change on a show. So,
great.
There you go.
I just feel like these actors are all pretty capable, but there's certain episodes, just in the 3 that I've watched, where they just don't seem to be doing a good job. And then they'll be fine the next episode.
I think Colleen Wing is great.
I like her butt.
Yeah, she has a nice butt.
Strong.
Mm-hmm.
She could carry a lot of stuff, I bet. She's looks like she's a good lifter.
Uh-huh.
She uses her legs, not her back.
Did you get up to the sex scene yet in Iron Fist?
Yeah, but don't talk about it. Don't spoil
I assume that's the brother and sister.
Yes, it's the brother and sister.
There's some sexual tension going on that's very uncomfortable between those two.
That goes away. Maybe. I don't know. I just remember going back and watching the other shows and thinking, and while I was watching them, just yelling at the screen saying, shut up already and fight or something. Daredevil had a lot of fucking talking in it. And not
yes, Daredevil does have a lot of talking in it, but it also had Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
He was awesome.
And there's no one on this the problem is there really isn't anyone on Iron Fist that sort of elevates the show.
Isn't Rosaria Dawson in this?
Yeah, she has a small part.
She is, but she's too. She's not really there enough. It's not. Okay. It's not like British guy on what's the other one on Jessica Jones.
Right.
Like how I just called him British guy.
Sure.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, Benny Hill. Is that who you're thinking of?
Yes, Benny Hill. He was great on that.
David Tennant
and Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes,
and,
there's no Vincent
D'Onofrio. We're talking
D'Onofrio.
about the villains, but there was just they elevated that show.
Maybe it comes later. Maybe we haven't gotten to it yet.
Alfre Woodard on Luke Cage. Mike Coulter, though, the guy who played Luke Cage, I thought had a really strong presence on screen that I didn't really find with any of the other heroes. I think he was the best cast.
Oh yeah, he is. He was awesomely cast.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong too, and people will be mad at me. But Mahershala Ali, who played Cottonmouth, who just won an Academy Award for Best Actor. I mean, it's a different caliber of casting and acting.
What do you mean? The guy who plays Ward Meacham won 2 daytime Emmys.
Yeah, exactly.
It was Best Young Actor.
Good for him.
Yes. I rest my case.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's anyone on this show, though, that has that. There's no one really on this show with any kind of pedigree. Which
yes.
I know may make me sound like a jerk.
Racist jerk.
Is that what it is?
Elitist jerk.
Elitist. That's better.
Yeah. All right, enough. We can't talk about Iron Fist anymore. That's enough. Too much.
Okay.
That was 10 minutes too long. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
New releases.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, wait, before we do that, I just want to say this real quick. I don't know if you use Voodoo at all, Cheapy and or Shipwreck.
I have a doll of you here. He's got like 5 pins in the back right now.
Not that kind of voodoo.
Oh.
The Voodoo streaming service, VUDU.
No, I don't do that.
Okay, I use Voodoo actually for a lot. Because it's on a lot of my devices, because I'm not an Apple person.
Did we get an ad for these people? What's going on here?
No, they have a new thing that they started, I think, yesterday or today, called Disc to Digital, and I did it today. It's really cool.
Okay.
If you have an old DVD, if you have the Voodoo app, you scan the barcode on the back of the DVD, and they'll sell you a digital version for like $2 for DVDs you already own.
Interesting.
Yeah. So today, and they're having a promotion now where the first time you do it, it'll be free for your first movie. So I
So you're telling me
upgraded.
I could this copy of Alf Tales, Alf and the Beanstalk that I have in my hand right now.
Right now, they only have 7,000 movies available.
Probably have Alf Tales, Alf and the Beanstalk.
Yeah,
though,
they
right?
didn't have any of the Disney stuff that it didn't have digital available, which was sort of a bummer. But my 2 Batman movies, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, which I don't have digital copies of, I now have digital HD on my Vudu account for a whopping $2 total. So
You overpaid.
I overpaid. I don't think I overpaid.
You're never going to watch them.
I checked it out. I checked out Batman's Begins just to see how the picture looked. But I don't know. I thought that was something neat. And I'm sure we have people watching who have a lot of DVDs.
And are frugal.
And are frugal. Excuse me for trying to save our listeners money.
Right.